philosophies of the Masonic Lodge arsonists, who are technically great men, i.e., Benjamin Coleman and John Mowbray, propose that there is a cosmic conflict between the paranoid schizophrenic and the Freemasons. Indeed, the Freemasons envy the schizophrenic mind, being that the schizophrenic is of the 20 to 30% of mental patients theorized by Itzhak Bentov to be of a higher stage of consciousness and evolution. And indeed, this is why the Freemasons conjure techno demons and non-techno demons, also demons, demonic spirits, and infest and plague the schizophrenic's mind with these demons. And indeed, it's all very interesting to consider the Freemasons put a lot of effort into paranoid schizophrenics, and indeed, paranoid schizophrenics, at least a percentage of them, could be considered targeted individuals also. Now, I have the added designation of being both a targeted individual and a targeted paranoid schizophrenic by the Freemasons, the psychiatric establishment, and the Anglo intelligence community. So it's interesting to consider indeed. Of course, a lot of my targeting is carried out by Wiltshire police. Indeed, I'd like to extend this cosmic conflict between the paranoid schizophrenics and the Freemasons into a cosmic conflict between paranoid schizophrenics, targeted individuals, against the Freemasons and the Anglo and American intelligence communities. So very interesting. This is a cosmic conflict. The intelligence community in the United Kingdom is nothing more than an occult pederasty ring operated by networks that heavily intersect with the Mossad and the Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst, therefore the octopus. It is interesting to consider that the majority of British public figures are being blackmailed by Mossad and DVD operatives. Indeed, it's all very interesting to consider this is the heritage of the Bavarian Illuminati and the Asiatic Brethren in action here, blackmailing all British public figures. So it's all very interesting to consider indeed. Israeli operatives run large percentages of the narco, child, and organ trafficking cartels, especially here in Wiltshire. All of this activity, which is majority Wiltshire police, Turkish mob, and Albanian mob activity, is overseen by Israeli agents. Indeed, Israeli agents also oversee Gladio 4 networks of neo-Nazi Satanist terrorists. Indeed, interesting to consider the interlinking between these neo-Nazi satanic terrorist networks and their offshoot progeny, i.e. the child sexual abuse material and child exploitation networks of neo-Nazi Satanists also, who believe in theistic Satanism and nihilistic National Socialism. Indeed, they describe themselves as misanthropic people. So it's interesting to consider indeed. These people represent a seriously dark energy and are themselves coordinated by police and Masonic lodges with Israeli intelligence oversight. So it's all very interesting to consider how these networks are to be utilized in an endgame scenario being operated by the British equivalent of the Department of Homeland Security. So it's all very interesting to consider indeed. This network forms the core nucleus of the British security services, i.e. MI5, who will soon have the powers of arrest on British citizens. Indeed, the idea that the police state lobby wishes to introduce is that the British security services will function similarly to how the KGB functioned in Soviet Russia, with both domestic and foreign intelligence and security branches, as well as acting as a secret police. So it's all very interesting to consider indeed. The plans for this are being drawn up by the Lansdowne family, i.e. the Petty Fitzmaurices, who began the British police concept in 1784 anyway, on instructions from Adam Weishaupt, the head of the Bavarian Illuminati order, who was at that point in Gotha, I believe. So it's interesting to consider indeed. The Windsor family, who run the monarchy of the United Kingdom, were themselves blessed with the monarchy by British Freemasons for their protection of Adam Weishaupt in Gotha during this important period, i.e. the 1780s. So it's all very interesting to consider that the overarching network of Freemasons of Britain and Germany that have led the way for this erection of a police state in the United Kingdom. Indeed, Devizes Police are a Masonic entity coordinated by Golden Lodge Number 4, which is headquartered in the crypt system beneath the Wiltshire Police Headquarters, and has as its Grand Master Philip Wilkinson, the Wiltshire Police Crime Commissioner, who was himself inextricably linked to several gun-running agendas with Kurdish militants operating their own organ trafficking, which eventually leads to Devizes' Waterrose and Sons butcher shop, where these Kurdish originating organs are stored in extensive refrigerator systems and then sold on the black market by Romanian mobsters and Russian gangsters to Russian elites, i.e. die-hard KGB operatives. So it's interesting to consider all of this. Indeed, there is a lot of saber rattling for a new conflict to start between the United Kingdom and the Russian Federation. Indeed, the defense industry here in Wiltshire, which basically operates as a pro-Israel lobby, is very intent on conquering eastern Ukraine to implement the Kingdom of Khazaria in eastern Ukraine and the repopulation of a depopulated region with Khazars to serve as a buffer state between Anglo-Israeli foreign policy and that of a rump Russia. So it's all very interesting to consider indeed. This is all happening according to the plan of Samuel P. Huntington and various other CIA interconnected operatives who conceived this plan in the 1960s, whereby the Soviet Union would originally be rolled back, and then eastern Ukraine would become a war zone and would subsequently be depopulated, and the region will be populated with Khazars, many of whom are being bred from Ashkenazim and Torah reading Karaites in underground chambers across western Ukraine. So it's interesting to consider they are breeding the CIA and MI6 networks, as well as British police overseers, are breeding a new Khazar race to populate eastern Ukraine after NATO troops, coordinated by the United States and United Kingdom foreign policy directors, basically occupy eastern Ukraine. So it's interesting to consider indeed. There is a whole plan for the depopulation of Eastern Ukrainian Slavs of both Ukrainian and Russian heritage, and the repopulation of the region with underground bred Khazars of King Bulan's aristocratic lineage. So it's all very interesting to consider indeed. The pro-Israel lobby in the Western governments is very much for war between the United Kingdom and the Russian Federation, because they know that they will achieve the kingdom of Khazaria if this occurs. So it's all very interesting to consider indeed. Israeli corporations dominate a lot of the pharmaceutical drug industry in the United Kingdom, as well as the United States, as we could see with the Sackler family's oversight of the OxyContin crisis that eventually led to the fentanyl, tranq, and xylazine epidemics. So it's all very interesting to consider indeed. These Israeli corporations are themselves sub-branches of IG Farben, i.e. the overarching Nazi conglomerate, which controls the West. So it's all very interesting to consider indeed. Blaise Metrovelli, the Director General of MI6, is an IG Farben operative through being associated with the Bilderberg Group, which is a network of NW7 operatives, IG Farben's intelligence branch. So it's interesting to consider Blaise Metrovelli served DVD interests rather than those of the Anglo peoples. So it's all very interesting to consider, and it's all quite convoluted. Indeed, the role of the Vatican in all of this is a ceremonial one. Indeed, the Vatican represents the interests of the United States and United Kingdom intelligence services through an interconnecting TMIT network of Turkish military intelligence operatives who are themselves part of NATO's Gladio intelligence oversight. So it's interesting to consider these are Sabbatean and Bektashi Sufi operatives, operative for a pro-Israeli agenda through the Vatican. So it's all very interesting to consider indeed. This is all interconnecting with US and UK intelligence interests. And MI6 have several liaisons to the current Pope through Prodeo and an adjoining network of the Franciscan Order, known as the Monks of Mendicant Hall, who interestingly have a network branch operating out of the University of Buckingham, i.e. the corporate front for Grenville Lodge number 1787. Several professors, such as Professor Stephen Havlin, a Roman Catholic operative of the Vatican, are within this body of initiates. So it's all very interesting to consider. The Monks of Mendicant Hall are overarchingly a Franciscan order network, but also operate as a sub-branch of MI5, i.e. the security services of the United Kingdom. So it's all very interesting to consider how all of these networks link up. Indeed, when I was at Grenville Lodge, operating as a spy, I became aware of the existence of the Monks of Mendicant Hall, though didn't pay it too much attention at the time. However, my ongoing studies into the Grenville Lodge enigma have revealed to me that the Monks of Mendicant Hall are a branch of Hellfire Club operations, also being interlinked with the Friars of Medmenham Abbey, i.e. the networks of Sir Francis of Wickham, which did exist today in various forms that interlink with Grenville Lodge number 1787. Indeed, Hellfire Clubs themselves link up to the Vatican through the Ninth Circle cult, which has as one of its headquarters Bowood House, the home of the Petty Fitzmaurice family, known as the Marquesses of Lansdowne. So it's all very interesting to consider indeed the Calm Police Child Abduction Network, which is overseen by the Wiltshire Police Headquarters in Devizes, is operative for the Ninth Circle cult, abducting British children from dysfunctional families and relocating them to the dungeons of Bowood House, where they are raped and mutilated by Hellfire Club and Ninth Circle Coven initiates, and then chased through the woods of the location, and then murdered by these Satanists in ritual fetishist fashion. So it's all very interesting to consider indeed. Devizes police are a key interlinking chain in this network, as are the Waterrose and Sons butcher shop, as their courtyard provides a transfer point for these abducted children to be then registered and sold on to manor houses around the Wiltshire countryside, such as Bowood House. So it's all very interesting to consider the role of Waterrose and Sons butcher shop in an overarching nefarious agenda overseen by the British, American, Israeli, Nazi, and Vatican secret intelligence services. So it's all very interesting to consider how all of these networks are interlinking and what is really at play here. Indeed, the Society of Jesuits also have a stake in this operation, being one of the largest child trafficking networks in the West, especially in view of the Catholic nations. Indeed, many South American children are abducted by Society of Jesuits proxies and end up in the rings here in Wiltshire, being raped, mutilated, cannibalized, their dead bodies raped and eaten by initiates of various Masonic and Grand Druid orders, including Hellfire Club and Hellfire Club adjoined Ninth Circle cult covens. So it's all really quite dark what is going on here in Wiltshire. Indeed, the truth about Wiltshire is really quite scary. Indeed, Wiltshire contains some of the worst satanic necrophile rings on earth, and a lot of this activity is centered around the town of Devizes, which happens to be the town where the Wiltshire Police Headquarters is, and the town which oversees the Roundway experiment, i.e. continual medical experiment on mental patients in view of mind control projects that are linked to the British military intelligence, i.e. Defence Intelligence Network, and MI6 Mindgate program. Indeed, Defence Intelligence spend large percentages of their black budget on the Roundway experiment, and this all interconnects with the child trafficking and human experimentation processes that go on here at Warminster Military Base. So it's interesting to consider there are a lot of Warminster Military Base networks interconnected with Israeli private security firms overseeing a lot of the child abduction, child pornography, and human experimentation and trafficking trades. So it's all very interesting to consider. There are so many networks of military intelligence spooks employed in this capacity, working in league with Israeli Lubavitch networks and Hasidic networks to ensure total world domination by Hasidics and Sabbateans. So it's all very interesting to consider. Indeed, this is all really quite strange how it all links up, that all these neo-Nazi networks and Satanist networks all come together in one conglomerate, i.e. IG Farben, which has several Sabbateans on its board of directors. Indeed, the Warburg family, who are conversos and Sabbateans, are operative on the IG Farben board of directors. So it's all very interesting to consider. Indeed, IG Farben connects to the organ trade in Devizes, i.e. that of Walter Rose and Sons Butcher Shop, through my mother, interestingly, Sally Field, as she oversaw many of the organ trafficking finances of the IG Farben connected by a subsidiary H.C. Stark in relation to the Devizes organ handling capacity. So it's all very interesting to note. Indeed, Women's Police Community Support Officer Sally Field of Calne Police also had an affair with PC Stuart Welsh of Calne Police, who was heavily involved in the child abduction and child trafficking agendas of Calne Police, which profit the Calne Police black budget in view of operations that they are running in the territory, including the kiddie porn circuit, which is also handled by PC Stuart Welsh, along with several prominent so-called local gangsters in the Calne area, and a dark web operative of the child porn trade known to Calne's folk as Caleb Wilson. Indeed, this is all very interesting to consider. Indeed, this network also links up with Azov Battalion, pro-Khazar networks, operatives such as Vermin, known to Calne's folk as Cass Lynch or Cassius Lynch, who goes under his real title PC Joseph Lynch of Devizes Police, but whose real name is child rapist Warren Grimes. And indeed, this man is operative for a jihadist fundamentalist network at the moment, i.e. the White Jihad National Socialist Order of Nine Angles. So it's interesting to consider all of these neo-Nazi Satanist networks are jihadists. So it's all very interesting to consider how jihadist networks have always been proxies of Western intelligence, dating back to overlaps between the Knights Templars and networks of extremist Ismaili assassins. So it's all very interesting to note that Knights Templars always kept their own networks of extremist jihadists to basically control the population when the population became difficult to control. So it's all very interesting to consider how all of this links up in view of NATO rollback policies of the Russian Federation and the utilization of mind control jihadi terrorists in the former Soviet territories. Indeed, Chechen Mujahideen are controlled directly by the British police through Gladio 4 concepts. So it's all very interesting to consider the Chechen Mujahideen are controlled by the British police and are utilized for operations within the borders of the Russian Federation by British police operatives who double up in this concept as MI6 operatives. Indeed, it's also interesting to consider that the British police are currently being trained by Mossad operatives in counter-terror and human containment directives. So it's all very interesting to consider that the Israeli intelligence services are currently training the British police, utilizing Israeli private security firms and Israeli private intelligence contractors such as the Black Cube and the Archimedes Group. Indeed, it's all very interesting to note. Indeed, Black Cube have a rather terrible reputation and are known for protecting prominent Sabbatean individuals from witnesses to their activities, including the silencing of witnesses both terminally and non-terminally. So it's all very interesting to consider. Indeed, Black Cube have neutralized numerous satanic ritual abuse survivors in the United States, the United Kingdom, and the Russian Federation. Indeed, Rebarel Lazar, the head of the Luboviches within the Russian Federation, is operative for the Black Cube. Indeed, I believe the Black Cube may be involved in my targeting at some degree, and are themselves hostile to Russian Slavs. So it's all very interesting to consider how all of this interlinks. Indeed, Anglo populations are to be brutalized by jihadi networks and neo-Nazi satanic white jihad networks in the coming years, with a lot of oversight from networks such as Black Cube and the Archimedes Group. Indeed, all of this is occurring on directives issued by head Sabbateans of the Jericho Group, headquartered in Frankfurt, the original home of the Rothschild family. So it's interesting to consider, indeed, the Rothschild family directly interlinked to all of this activity. However, they are only a surface layer. It goes so much higher than the Rothschilds, just as it goes so much higher than Jeffrey Epstein. However, these networks are put out into the public domain to keep you off the real figures running Israeli and Sabbatean intelligence networks, such as the Herschel family and the Grunspan family. Indeed, these networks all interconnect with Western and Russian intelligence cryptocracies in a grand overall agenda in which Putin is a puppet. Indeed, Putin is a Sabbatean and is claiming to operate against Western interests when he actually serves the Western elites and Israeli spy rings. So it's all very interesting to consider. Indeed, Putin is an Order of Malta initiate and therefore is a papal knight of the Vatican. So this must be considered and taken into consideration. Indeed, I'm not entirely sure what to think of the intelligence services of the Russian Federation, as they are dominated by neo-Nazi and racist elements and fund such movements in the United Kingdom as the Maniac Murder Cult and the Russian Imperial Movement, whose interests overlap with those of the Nordic Resistance Movement and Order of Nine Angles and all the associated networks there. So it's interesting to consider. Indeed, I believe the Russian Imperial Movement terrorist networks may be used by Russian intelligence to monopolize on the catastrophe that is set to occur in the United Kingdom beginning in 2027. So it's interesting, we are approaching a cataclysm. And also, Russian and Chinese intelligence have plans to utilize biological and chemical warfare instruments created in their laboratories for a pacification agenda that will basically soften up the United Kingdom population to stop the United Kingdom population effectively being able to wage war on the Russian Federation. Indeed, I'm against this war anyway, so it's all very interesting to consider that the saber rattling is being coordinated by pro-Israeli defense intelligence operatives operating a large lobby within the British government as they support the repopulation of eastern Ukraine with Khazars who are being bred underground in laboratories in Ukraine and Siberia, apparently, which is quite interesting, which means that there is Russian intelligence in on this scheme. Indeed, these would be networks surrounding the Herschel family and Re Beryl-Lazar, the one of the Grand Rabbis of the Russian Federation and a key operative of the alphabet, i.e. the Lubavitcher private intelligence network. So it's all very interesting to consider how all of these networks interconnect in this grand scheme being operated by British Freemasons and German Illuminists for Sabbatean world domination. Indeed, it's all very strange how it all adds up, and interesting how it all links up to an organ harvesting network in a small country bumpkin town in Wiltshire, i.e. the Wrong Turn, i.e. devises the home of a redneck police force who brutally gang raped me in Melksham Police custody on Monday the 7th September 2020, led by a man who is a notorious child abuser, PC James Spencer of Devizes Police, a Hellfire Club procurer of young children for the satanic ritual sacrifice and abuse rings, operative from Wiltshire manor houses such as Burwood House. So it's all very interesting to consider how all of this interlinks. Indeed, this is an international agenda, so it's all very interesting to consider, and indeed, many interlinking concepts cannot be ignored when attempting to analyze this enormous trade. Indeed, I'm going to leave it there now.